It has been a good long while since you guys have heard or seen from me, but I wanted to introduce you guys today a really fun Catan game that I literally just played that finished on January 1st, 2024 to celebrate the new year. So kind of wanted to just run you through it while the game was fresh on my mind. I have the day off today, so it'll be a nice little treat for you guys. So we are placing in second position. I have the game on a 2x speed. Hopefully it's not too quick or too slow for you guys. I noticed the average algorithm for other videos tends to run at about 15-20 minutes, but I'm deciding where to go for first here. So as blue, I'm looking at the 8-4-11 as a distinct possibility, and the primary reason for that is that it generally opens up a lot of opportunities. 6-5-10 going in greens is really good. There's a lot of outs for that. And as you'll see, what they likely end up with. The main concept and idea behind 4-8-11 is that the sheep is very rare and the ore plus wheat combo is very rare. Another cool thing to keep in mind is that because the wood is plentiful, the wood port plus the invaluable guaranteed 3-1 port here on the right just overall really helps your game in the long term. So for a little bit of context, I apologize, no face cam this time. Just freestyling, free spitting, but if you guys want to see more, definitely do let me know. But anyway, a little bit of context here. This is going to be a alt account playing colonist auto rank. And in I check ND7 because MD7 is one of the best players, so I just wanted to see if it was an alt. But anyway, this game is why I love Catan. And you guys are going to see why this is peak gameplay. Not in the sense that I did anything tactically insane, but I think you guys are going to enjoy this roller coaster. So a little bit of a freestyle, no editing here. You might just see some fun little gameplay turn out. So we do get to see a 6-4-3 placed by Orange on the left, which is generally pretty good. It's the best wheat on the board. Kind of hard to pass that up. Orange thinks a long time about this settlement, but it's very clear to me that it's the 11-3-4. With red, starting road is great because they can go to the 11-12, and they also have the 10-3-1 there for themselves to contest. Really interesting thing here, too, is that the center of the board is the desert, which is not primarily the case. You tend to get a lot of coastal desert boards. So placing second on this, I wasn't exactly 100% comfortable with what I was doing. But Orange does inevitably take the 11-3-4, which was as expected, and they end up, I believe, pointing it to the left, which makes sense because the wood port is very worthless to them, but they might find value in the 3-11 expansion. Now, I very quickly decide on what to do here because it's going to be the 8-5-3 to the 8-10 expansion. I didn't see green realistically taking the 8-10. And as you'll see shortly, I'm asked in the chat why I don't take the 8-10 outright. I believe at time of this game, I'm sitting around 1500 elo, which is low to slightly below or slightly above low elo. So a lot of people don't understand that 5 resource setups are not actually the best play here. So I roll a 7. I tried to steal from Orange there because they had a 2 out of 3 chance for a sheep, but I missed it. And then as you can see, this is a very vocal table, which is really, really nice. I try to explain my reasoning, which is kind of a bad thing to do actually because you're upselling your position. But I don't know, it kind of makes sense in the context here. So we do get the robber thrown to the 9, 4-1 for a brick just because it's so rare. I try to get a sheep out of Orange here in order to pop because they started with 2 sheep and then they have a wheat, so now they need an ore as well to pop. We end up pulling the Monopoly. Really nice card here to pull in the first dev of the game. And the robber is going to move to the 6, which is really nice for us. Red makes a kind of offhanded comment there. Now, I'll admit I have gotten toxic before, but in this situation, I think it makes sense to give like a passive comment like that. With blue, I mean, so you'll see red and green start buddying up a lot in this early game, which is going to be very frustrating to try and work and play against, but you'll see how we get the revenge back. So I tried to attempt to steal from green there, trying to confirm it, whether or not they had a card that I needed to steal, but the robber is going to bounce around here, and orange is going to be an invaluable early ally. The nice thing about our setup is that traditionally the 3, 5, and 4 would be the only targets for Robs as they're dual shared. Most people don't opt to solo block this early on in the game. Red does get a very nice settlement though on the wheat on the 3-1 with the 10. Looking to probably expand to the wheat port next. But as you can see, we are just passing, just biding our time. Honestly, early Monopoly is, it can be great, but it can also be terrible. I mentioned in chat that 8 hasn't rolled yet, which is true, and it will not pick up for a good portion of the game. I opt to decline this trade, even though in hindsight I might have taken it, but I believe that would have maybe given him a city. Not the best card tracker. But Red does point out that I'm limited in numbers, which generally I think double 8 here with the setup is fine, because you have double or double wheat with sheep, and then you expand to the wood port 3-1 to use that wood that you have excess of. I think my setup is a-okay. Red drops the road here, possibly contesting the 8, which is a little bit intimidating. But there's not a lot that I can do with my hand, so I just kind of have to bide my time and wait. Of course, they're offering the same deal I would. In this situation, I try to grab a brick, but because the brick is so valuable, it's not going to get swung. I have to buy a dev again, and I get a 2-for-2 Monopoly special. Very uncommon, you see that. And I tend to be a player that does not like pulling Monopolies, not in the sense that I don't like pulling them in general, just this early on, because when you pull them in late game and early game, you tend to get kind of nervous because the Monopoly is the only game in the end game that, or the only card in the end game that can balance out the table. It's a force balance. And in the early game, if you use it and you don't count the cards correctly, because I would consider card tracking to be probably my main weakness. Believe it or not, I find it easier to do in person than online. But anyway, point being is, I think I snap on this trade here, but then he opts to actually take it with orange instead. So red is off to a very early lead. Red mentions used all the luck last game. That's because I won the last game. I do take this trade here with green, which is a very bad trade to take. But the idea here that I'm having is because I have 2 monopolies in hand, I don't mind giving strong trades to green because that should encourage the Robs to go elsewhere. As you can see, orange is going to start picking up knights. I mentioned in chat, at least you can agree I'm in last, which is technically true. But the concept here is I don't mind giving up table balance. Traditionally, you would never do that trade to give green a city. But because I have the 2 monopolies, I know that number 1, nobody else has a monopoly, which is arguably just as important. And number 2, that I can use it to catch up later. Green finally agrees that I'm not looking so good. And then I kind of have to bite my tongue there on that comment. I was trying to see if I could potentially give up my city here for a dev. But they say it doesn't matter. You can still take it. I'm trying to consider the pros and cons here. Ideally, I would like to get a settlement. I actually thought about 4-1ing the ore for a brick and settling, but I actually opted to just get the city down. The reason behind this is that if the robber goes through, it'll be on the 5 or the 6. So I should not be the main target on the right side. Traditionally, because red and green should not have much robber control this game. A trade does get performed, though, with green to allow orange to settle on the ore port, which is really, really nice for their game, actually. 7 is thrown, and we will get to see the robber move yet again by green. I believe it goes to the 4, which honestly I do agree this is the correct block because you get to confirm whether or not we have knights, and then green gets a very early settlement down for 5 points. I try to trade for a brick. I make again a very risky, very greedy trade, which is a bad trade for me, but I attempt to give 2 cards for the brick. Reason being is in an auto match environment where you don't have voice chat, self-dependency is very important, especially with 3-1 ports. So getting on this 3-1 port gives me what I need, and the fact that I don't have to depend on another player is really, really important. So as you can see, orange is popping. At this point, I figure that army is kind of dead. So I have to try to collaborate here to see how this game can be extended. Because now I'm trying to run through the options. I'm ore wheat sheep, and I'm most likely going to be losing army, which means I have to BTT without brick. So as you can see, red starts to contest the 3-1 on the 8, which is really, really bad for me. Because if they settle, that's 5. They build a road, that's 7. Green as well, sitting with a very strong city 3-1 port. With a lot of access to the middle of the board. Drops the double road to the 9. And then I think I try to trade down to a dev here, but I end up dropping second city instead. And then I think shortly after this, I point out that green goes to They go to 8 essentially with settle plus 1 road. And at this point of the game, I'm counting myself out because I'm not getting army. There's not enough time to get army in this game. Red's already on 5, green's already on 5, both contesting road. And then at this point, I'm just trying to see whatever value I can squeeze out to get dev cards. Because even though I have monos, traditionally, if you pull victory points, rule builders, year of plenties, you can sometimes have a chance. But you see the 2 gets rolled here for green. I believe it is going to be a settlement that is taken and a dev. And at this point, I call out in chat that if green has a victory point and they build 1 road, that's 9 points and that the table needs to work together to stop it. I also try to, at the same time when I say this, drawing the attention to myself, I also try to downgrade my hand into a development card, but I believe the table leaves me stuck. Green says it's not a VP, which is fair. You can't automatically assume, but you have to assume the worst case scenario. Unfortunately, here I roll an 8 after I pass, which would have been great to have earlier. And we start to see orange use the Year of Plenty to drop the, what do they drop here? I think it's City, which makes sense. Oh no, they drop double dev with the Year of Plenty. Okay, so we see another 9 get thrown. I mentioned that somebody should still take the road. And at this point, I'm kind of like really uncomfortable because I know I need to get a settlement. So I end up, what I do here is I trade away my brick to red. And the concept behind this is that I can temporarily give the road to red to stop green from getting it. Because green with 6 built points and a down dev is much scarier with road than red is. Unfortunately, I 7 out and they steal the sheep from my hand. So I essentially went from a possible 2 to 3 point play, depending on the roll, to a single dev card, which really, really sucks. Especially because I'm giving the cards away to red. So we see double road here is dropped by green. And the fact that he says that it's not a VP here is really interesting because you don't see a knight played. I believe the 7 was thrown instead to throw it on the 8 hex. So at this point in the game, I'm trying to count because I can't hold the monos anymore. So I opt to do the mono on the ore. Some players might opt to dirty mono there, but I opt to just double pull and hold. Because if I dirty mono, essentially I lose the table's cooperation at this point. And then I call out the fact that green probably has a VP, which at this point we can't confirm nor deny because they could very easily win with a settlement and a road, right? They have a lot of rolls to do that. I mentioned here that I can't help him extend it all because I have no wood and brick, so we try to find a mutually collaborative effort to no avail because I'm trying to count the cards in the chat. But the issue here as well is that even if he drops the roads, green can very much break them with a settlement if they do double road settle, for an example. Another 9 is rolled here, and we're assuming that it's game over, so I kind of make a slight-handed comment saying that you were too focused on me in the early game, and we're not looking at green here. But interestingly enough, they drop the city, and I'm like, GG, they drop a road, it's over. But believe it or not, funnily enough, we get to see that it's actually a Year of Plenty to drop the connect and potential pop for the win, but they miss it. So in this situation, because I know that I don't have VPs, I'm very scared, excuse me, because green could have very easily won there. So they did the correct sequencing. Orange plays a knight, and at this point I'm like, okay, there's no way I can win. Orange has army, green has road. So I start getting desperate and I start trying to calculate what is the play here. And I keep writing in chat that they need to hit the 10. You'll see the blocks go around 9, 5, 6 a few times, but the block needs to be the 10. Primary reason being is that it's a free card, whereas if a 6 plus 5 rolls, it's not an immediate win because he only has 3 to 1 ports, so it's not a city roll. Whereas if a 10 rolls with a combination of any other number, it can be a very big deal due to the brick port. So that's primarily why I hit that there. So I try to work this out with red, and then I say the iconic comment, "Let me cook. I got a plan." I'm pulling a Dutch Vanderlyn here in the chat. Red says if he extends, that orange or green can settle, and I agree with him. So it's kind of a tough situation because a 9 rolls here, and now I'm trying to calculate. I tell him that I have to play the Monopoly, which is kind of scummy, but I need to because I need to delay the game again. So I opt to mono the ore. And then I tell him I'm trying to calculate how we can stop him. And then if he says, if I can, I'll help you. And this is where doing a dirty mono would kill your chance of winning this game. So I opt to do this. He says he doesn't have, and then I should have actually tried to get the win instead, but it's fine. So I roll into Nat City, and I'm trying to convince Orange here to help Red connect, because that's the only chance we all have. Red getting Road puts him on 7. Green with Road and unconfirmed Dev puts them on possibly 8. Orange has possibly 2 VPs down for 7, and I'm questionable, let's just say 7. So balancing the table everyone to 7 is pretty interesting. Another good thing to note here is that Green does not have any settlements left, and Orange attempts to extort here, and I'm telling him that's stupid. You can't extort us, because if you settle, the game is immediately over because Green gets 1 point. The rest of us have to get at least 3 points each, assuming the dev cards are perfect in this situation. So then I call out Orange, and I say, I'm trying to extend. You're playing selfish. This actually forces, or not forces, but encourages him to hold, which makes sense. It's a very logical play. Orange can get a point, but it's very narrow-sighted, very short-sighted, because if he does that, Red has no chance at Road. So I tell him here that I can help him extend. So this is what I opt to do. Now, this is where you would get a lot of conflicting comments, a lot of conflicting people saying different things. But I opt to feed him my whole hand. And this is because Orange is not being cooperative whatsoever. So I'm actually forced here to give him every single card in my hand for a double road. Triple road, excuse me. In a normal game, Orange would contribute slightly. And then I make a comment saying I fed my whole hand and I'm not winning. And then I call out Orange again for being greedy, because they really need to help and cooperate, because this is a 3v1 scenario. So they get a little mad at me. And then I see that Red has sheep. And because I fed them my whole hand earlier, I ask him to do this trade, which allows me to get 2 more knights. So as you can see, you're starting to see where this game is going. We have Red pacing strongly on army, but we need to delay Green from winning. Now, at any point, Green can win with a 9+6, 9+5, 10+6, 9, 10, 6, 5. Any combination is win for them. And I very much push the point to Orange that you have locked army, not really, but very, very likely locked army, that he can't settle or we lose. His best chance is to take the sheep port that I tell him I'm not going to contest. And then I make the comment here that I have 0 VPs, which arguably I should or should not do. But what this does is it tells the table that Green can very easily win with a pop if Red doesn't get road here. So if Orange settles on the 311 desert, they cut the road, and essentially guaranteeing the win for Green. So I tell Orange, I finally convince him, and he opts to take the sheep port instead. This trade was very generous, obviously, but... And then I tell Red, we need to give you 2 roads here. He opts to hit the 5, which sucks. But I guess I kind of understand it, because he just got a bunch of sheep from a trade. And then we get stuck here again, because I have 1 wood, Orange has 0 cards. He doesn't realize that he has 0 cards, but I opt to trade in my hand here, because he needs to get 1 road. But because Orange emptied his entire hand, there's no roads left to feed. So if I'm playing as Orange, and I know that I'm basically locking up army, I tell him he can't trade because he has 0 cards. If I'm playing as Orange, I will gladly give up a wood or something to extend. And then Green has 7 cards, but cannot perform an action. They should have extended road in hindsight, but I make the correct block on myself by blocking the 10. And then I tell Red here to give me a wheat because of the cards that I've been giving him. So Pop and GG not over, give me Dev and I trade you road, which is true. The only way we can extend this game. And this is where you guys will start to see the 8s picking up. Now, why am I doing this? It's because I have 2 cities established, and 8, 11, 3, 4, 5 are all huge numbers for me. So this is where we finally make it happen with Red. I'm able to get them the roads necessary to stop Green. And I'm making the comment, why aren't you building the roads toward Green? This is for a couple of different reasons. Number 1, I don't want them to necessarily have all that board space on the top, because Orange and me can both contest it, and I might need it as a spot. But I told him that he should have pointed the roads to the left to block the potential road settle on the 12. But that's like not really a huge change to the game. But in a technical standpoint, you would want to drop the 2 roads to the 12, just from my understanding. But we are able to feed him the cards. We now have an insane hand of 16 cards. So this is where I opt to dev, and dev again, and dev again. And now you guys are starting to see the picture. I play an aggressive knight and I throw it on the 6, but this is very scary to do because at any point combo of 10, 5, or 9 can win him the game. But the reason I hit the 6 here, um, well, I don't necessarily have a reason for hitting the 6 other than the fact that 10 plus 6 can also be a point for red. So trying to deny points for red here because we're feeding them cards. Unfortunately, I 7 out from a really giant hand. And then I comment here that he wins with a 10 and he can't be blocking the 5, which, of course, he's trying to be more diplomatic at this point, but I'm trying to feed him, right? So we're all colluding here. Now, everybody knows in Catan that there's 14 knights in the deck. So at this point, I'm trying to give red the best possible value here by giving him an or, and then I convince him here to, or I don't convince him, he needs to settle because orange at any point can take the settle and break the road. So now red is on 8 points, but I don't care because the road can be contested here. So I opt to pop, I get another VP, and then I'm thinking about what to do here because I have double road builder, which is crap, right? I would have preferred a second knight in this position for an immediate win. Orange is trying to trade for a development card, and I think it gets passed through, which I'm really pissed about because it's guaranteed to be a knight at this stage of the game, which means that I can't. Well, I can still get the army, but I would require the last 2 cards in the deck. So a 9 gets rolled here, right? And I tell him that I don't have a knight because obviously, if I had a knight out of 5 cards, I would just win because I would get to 6, and then if I had the VPs for it to back it up. Green tries to pop, which there is still a VP in the deck I want to mention, but they unfortunately get knight there, which is, yeah. And then red makes the comment, it's teaming, da-da-da-da-da, and I buy a dev because I'm desperate at this point. The reason I buy a dev is on the off chance that orange has the 2 VPs and green doesn't have one, that I can try to still squeeze the road back. But as you can see, orange has a VP and green has a potential VP or knight. We don't know yet to confirm. I say VPs are hot, which is not really. And then he tries to port the brick for an or, and then I convince him to take his initial playback of a development card, which could have been the victory point for the win, to actually opt to build a road instead. So not only did he waste cards that are porting it for the or, but then I made him revert the trade, giving me value to extend the road to a locked 15. And I make a very true statement that if you build 15 roads, it is impossible for green to take it back. Green makes a very fair comment saying I don't have 3 in a settle, but they could have a VP at this stage of the game because they're not playing a knight. I opt to do this, and I opt to city, and that's the game. So the last card in the deck is a VP. So in the context that if I'm unable to win here, I could play a knight, buy the other card, but then I'd have to hope that it rings all the way around back to me. But I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of just like freestyle narration for this game. I had a lot of fun table talking this. I don't think it was played optimally, of course, but if you guys have any comments you want to make, do feel free to let me know. I had a lot of fun, kind of a bit of a blast playing it. But I think it was interesting to note that I believe that there was a VP in Green's hand at the end, and that the last card was a knight. So if they don't extend, they actually do win. But in Red's position, you probably want to buy the dev because there's a chance that it could be a VP. But anyway, as always, hope you guys enjoyed. Take care.